Well, hi there, everyone. It is Brian Barron, Director of Skincare Research at Paula's Choice Skincare, coming at you today with a brand new live chat. We're live, we're in person. Is it live? Is it Memorex? You have to be from my generation to understand that reference, or older. But if you do, let me know in the live chat questions. Today's topic is acne FAQs. We've done acne shows before. It's been a while, but acne, it's one of those topics that there is really, I mean, I could probably do a full hour of acne topic every month, really. I mean, one of our shows every month could just be devoted to the topic of acne because it affects so many people, different ages. There's differences in how acne presents itself and then what kind of marks it leaves behind, depending on your skin color. So we're going to be talking about all of that. We're going to be talking about something that is referred to as fungal acne. We're going to be talking about post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. We're going to be talking about which acne products and treatments are considered safe to use when you're pregnant or when you are breastfeeding. So all of that is on the horizon today. It is April 8th. Thank you for joining me on this Thursday. Normally we do have our, kick the light. Normally we do have our live chats on Wednesday, but there was we went through a really cool 2-day training session, and by we I mean myself and other members of the R&D team, as well as several people on our product development team, including our packaging person, who is wonderful, by the way. And it was a fantastic 2 days. It was really, the topic was sensory training. We did this training with one of our favorite industry friends. She's just phenomenal. I don't necessarily want to promote her by name because I don't want other people taking her time away from us because she's just so incredibly special. But it was a really fun 2 days, and yesterday's session would have taken me, or did take, right up into the time I would normally be talking to you. And with everything else going on earlier in the day, I had no time to prep. And I definitely wanted to get my ducks in a row for this particular show. I knew that in addition to answering the most common questions sent to me by our social team, I also wanted to share with you some new information on what the research is saying concerning acne, various new treatments that are approved for acne. So I see your questions are coming in. I am going to pull up my my notes here, and we'll dive in. So as always, you're welcome to ask me any beauty, skincare, hair care, whatever related question that you'd like. I love it, though, when we can stick as much as possible to the topic. So it can be anything related to acne, which is a huge topic. And again, I have a feeling that all of you watching and asking questions already struggle, at least to some extent, as I do, with occasional breakouts and or clogged pores. So let's dive in. From the breaking news department, the FDA recently approved a new topical medication called clascoterone, and this is a cream used at a 1% concentration that is capable of inhibiting sebaceous gland activity, which results literally in reduced oil production. So one of the major factors driving acne for so many of us is an overproduction of sebum, the oil, and then if situations are just right in the pore, which is technically known as the pilosebaceous unit, things can get backed up. You have excess oil trying to make its way out. You have tiny hairs, cellular debris trying to make their way out. They get trapped in that extra sticky oil, and sometimes one of the other cofactors, so to speak, in acne is not just having too much oil, but poor quality oil. So rather than your oil having the correct consistency, so to speak, it tends to thicken and get more sludgy. And just like a clog in a drain, that thick buildup of oil mixing with everything else that's trying to get out of the pore You've got that recipe for the pore to expand. You've got the recipe for the pore to clog. And then what happens under certain circumstances is one of the interesting mysteries. I'm just going to depart here for a sec. One of the interesting mysteries about acne that is still being investigated is that despite pretty much everybody having the Cutibacterium C. acnes bacteria on their skin on the regular, not everybody breaks out. And some people, teenagers are the most likely age group to experience acne vulgaris, classic acne. Why do some grow out of it? Why do some get a reprieve from it, only to have acne come roaring back during the mid-20s, what a lot of people would refer to as adult acne? And there's different theories on what is going on with this, this overarching group known as C. acnes. There are various subtypes of this acne. Not all of them are bad. And so the theory is that the people that tend to break out less, even though we still have a lot of this C. acnes on our skin, the people that tend to break out less tend to have a microbiome that can keep the C. acnes in better balance, so that you have the beneficial C. acnes that your skin needs to thrive and support its own microbiome, and then you have that competing with the inflammatory type of C. acnes bacteria. And when those scales tip, when the inflammatory C. acnes gets to be the dominant strain, so to speak, and or, because this is like, what? Another thing that can happen is that the once good C. acnes bacteria can go bad. It can become inflammatory. It's like this bacterial double agent. So that bacteria is anaerobic. It does not like oxygen. That's one of the reasons why benzoyl peroxide, which is a strong oxidizing agent, can kill this bacteria, but it loves hanging out deep in your pore. Okay? It's not sitting on the surface of your skin. Well, if it is, it's dead or near dead because, again, oxygen. So it prefers to hide out in the pore. It's anaerobic. When it gets that nice backup of extra oil and dead skin cells, it's like old country buffet. I mean, it is literally all you can eat. That bacteria jumps to it. It just starts having a smorgasbord. And before you know it, you have a pretty acute inflammation going on. This is what is setting the stage for what we think of as acne in terms of a pimple, a pustule, a papule, that red, swollen, irritated looking mound, some would say, on the skin. So that's a different etiology than what happens when the pore becomes clogged because of that buildup. Some people, actually I shouldn't even say some people, because I think this is true for a lot of people, will have clogged pores, blackheads, whiteheads, for example, and acne at the same time. So clascoterone is an interesting topical because its efficacy is comparable to a hormone-blocking drug known as spironolactone that is typically prescribed to take by mouth. Anytime you're taking something by mouth, whether it's an antibiotic, ibuprofen, whatever, it becomes systemic. It doesn't just stay localized. What's exciting about clascoterone is that you can put it on your most oil-prone areas. It's considered well-tolerated for all ages and all ethnicities. I did not dig deep enough to find out, just as a quick aside, if it is considered safe to use while pregnant or breastfeeding. So forgive me for pharmacist about if you're considering this medication and may be or trying to be with child or feeding child. But that's just par for the course with any medication, particularly a newer medication. But this is exciting because the topical medications in the past, or what's available to us now, can only do so much to help with oil, and really nothing other than isotretinoin or the hormone blocker or hormone reducing type medications that we take by mouth can have a significant impact on reducing overactive sebaceous glands. So that's why the approval of clascoterone is so exciting, because it is a topical treatment. It's not going to go past this guy. I think the pharmacokinetics on it showed very, very small amount to actually get into the body itself. what does get through is metabolized and excreted, i.e. your body is doing what it's supposed to do. So that's absolutely something to ask your doctor about. In other prescription news, there is a move away from prescribing what's known as a broad spectrum oral antibiotic for acne. Classic example of this is tetracycline. That's what my husband was on in the early 80s before he kind of ran his course with that and ended up having to take a course or two of Accutane. I tell you, I didn't know him back then, and looking at his skin now, I mean, his skin is just really, really nice, and there's like almost no evidence that he ever struggled with acne in the past, and I rarely see him get an acne breakout these days, or a clogged pores. So, and his skincare routine is far less involved than mine, shall we say. He does use Paula's Choice, and he's a guinea pig, if I do say so, for a lot of our products that are in development. Always love his feedback. But yeah, he was on tetracycline, and it was not fun. Tetracycline by mouth. So instead, more dermatologists are focusing on narrow spectrum versions, which are either derivatives of old school antibiotics like tetracycline that are more tightly focused on getting to that root causes of acne, or they are turning to various hormonal agents. I mentioned spironolactone. That is still on the table for oral use to control acne. It's really an interesting approach. And then oral contraceptives. Many dermatologists are using those for their female patients in lieu of giving them oral antibiotics. And the reason for that is that oral antibiotics mounds of research has shown that although they do have their place, I'm not saying that oral antibiotics should never be used, but when it comes to acne, there are alternative treatments that don't have the significant gut microbiome disrupting effect that pretty much all of the oral antibiotics do. That is why it's such a common side effect with any oral antibiotic, especially if you're taking it for a week or longer, which in the case of acne, you're typically on these for 3 to 6 weeks, sometimes even several months. You get diarrhea, you get intestinal distress, you get stomach upset, you get nausea. Those oral antibiotics kind of go in and just sort of clean out to the gut microbiome because they don't discriminate. They go after all of the bacteria, not just the bad stuff that we don't want hanging around or propagating too much. What else? Oh, there's a new the focused tetracycline derivative I wanted to bring to your attention. This is an oral medication. It's called Seysara, Seysara. That's something to talk to your dermatologist about, particularly if you were already taking oral antibiotics for acne and you have not had much luck, and or you're seeing results, but the trade-off is you have stomach upset all the time. Okay. Stronger versions of topical antibiotics are also being developed. There is a new one called Amzeeq, and that is minocycline, and it's in foam form, and it's used at a 4% concentration for a more targeted, concentrated delivery. I believe topical concentrations of minocycline in the past were right around 1 to 2%. I could be mistaken, but that's what I'm recalling from the archives up there. Yeah, not always the most reliable. There is also a new tazarotene lotion known as Arazlo, Arazlo, and that's a specialized formula that's said to improve the even distribution of this synthetic retinoid in skin. So the company that made Arazlo they are describing their distribution system of this drug as a honeycomb mesh type system. So apparently, some of the earlier versions of tazarotene, which was tazarotene's been out for a while. It was one of the first retinoid alternatives after tretinoin and then adapalene, which is marketed as Differin, although I believe it's also available generically now. After those hit the market, so tazarotene was kind of like this third option to consider. A lot of people found it worked well, and then some people just had a terrible experience with it, and they found that the side effects the redness, the peeling, the sensitive skin, the flaking, that though it was even worse than earlier versions of tretinoin. So essentially this new drug kind of backfired for some people when it first came out. So there's been this push to figure out what about tazarotene is causing this skin upset. Why do so many people on tazarotene have to go through this awful period before they really start seeing their acne improve and they feel like they've turned a corner and their skin is finally tolerating this? And one of the things that they discovered was that in the older emulsions, tazarotene would tend to clump together or agglomerate. So what would happen is, if this is your a human face, you're putting on your retinoid, your tazarotene cream, and you're getting kind of like big bunches of it in smaller areas, and then other areas are getting minimal to no tazarotene. That is likely also why some people reported spotty efficacy with older school versions of tazarotene, which I believe first hit the market under the name of Tazorac and may still be available in that form. So Arazalo is said to be a very cool high-tech way to experience that retinoid anew. So I wanted to let you know about that. There is also, speaking of new, a brand new retinoid prescription on the scene. It is trifarotene is the drug name, Trifarotene. The brand name is Akleaf. I don't know where they come up with these names. It sounds like a Star Wars character. Meet my friend Akleaf. We're going to get the Jedi. Akleef. That is the brand name. That's how you spell it. It is from Galderma, the folks that bring us Cetaphil. And it is a 0.005% concentration of a retinoid. What's special about it is that it binds exclusively to the most prominent retinoid receptor site on skin. The other prescription retinoids bind to that site as well, but they also bind to the less common retinoid receptor sites. There's like retinoid, it's like RAR delta, RAR gamma, and so on. The thinking is that the reason that quite a few people have unwanted effects when they start using prescription retinoids is that too much of the drug, the vitamin A drug, is binding to the more sensitive retinoid receptor sites, and that is what is causing that inflammation that is resulting in the side effects until those receptor sites start getting the message, hey, we need to get used to this, we need to normalize, this is actually good. The original receptor sites, the most common, that are just like, yes, tretinoin, yes, adapalene, I know you, get over here, let's hook up, let's do some good things for skin. Those are just kind of humming along like they always do. So it seems that it's these lesser RAR sites, retinoic acid receptor sites, that are kind of going into a tizzy about certain retinoids. And it seems that, so if you are someone that's had an issue with prescription retinoids in the past, trifarotene, Akleaf from Galderma, which was just approved last year, is something to talk to your doctor about, particularly if you have gone back to OTC retinol and kind of found like, it's helping a little bit with my breakouts, but not as much as I'd like. Because there's no question that prescription retinoids have an edge to over-the-counter retinol and other retinoid over-the-counter versions for breakouts. I kind of liken the OTC retinols. They can certainly help with acne. They can definitely help with normalizing pores and texture, and of course, but where I really think that they shine in terms of that balance of benefits and tolerability is with signs of aging. However, if you are an adult with signs of aging and you're continuing to break out, maybe more on the mild side, an OTC retinol product can be the superstar in your routine. So I don't want to, it's kind of figuring out which of those would work best for you, and some people will need to experiment, and some people will find that their skin does really well going back and forth between, so one night you're using your over-the-counter retinol product and whatever texture you find works best, and there's various strengths to consider, and then the other night, or every other night, for example, you're putting on your prescription retinoid product, and that could be a really brilliant way to strike that balance, particularly if you find that when you use a prescription retinoid all the time or daily, that you can't tolerate it. You just get too many side effects. Maybe your acne is going away, but now your face is constantly red, or you're dealing with flaking, peeling skin. And when that is happening, there ain't no way you're getting makeup to look right. I'm sorry. It's just too difficult. It's just, because it seems like as soon as you get rid of one layer of flaky skin, there's another one right behind it. I know. Okay, let's talk about some myths. Let me see, how are we doing? You guys are probably going to be asking me about some of these anyway. So, okay. Going back to the question. So, myths about fungal acne. Let's talk about that. Fungal acne isn't something that you'd read about referred to by that name in a dermatology journal. Technically, it's not acne per se. It looks like acne. It is a condition called malassezia folliculitis, and folliculitis refers to inflammation of the follicle. And in this case, the inflammation is caused by an overproliferation of the malassezia yeast, which is a type of fungus that most of us have on our skin. It's just part of our microbiome. There's all kinds of things making up that unique little ecosystem that makes your skin your skin. What to say about fungal acne? It's not as common as it may seem. It is a recurring skin issue, though. It's believed to occur in roughly 25% of people who also have acne, which can confuse matters because you're dealing with fungal acne, as it's called, and acne vulgaris, classic acne at the same time, and you'll likely find that with the right products, your regular acne responds really well, but you still have these flesh-colored to reddened, raised, itchy bumps. That is a classic hallmark of fungal acne for most people. Roughly 80%, according to the research, report that there are bumps, which can be on the face, the chest, and the upper back. Those are the most common areas. Some people will also find that they get them on the upper arms. They itch. And acne, classic acne, does not itch. It can feel like hell. It can hurt, it can get swollen, but 9 times out of 10, or even more than that, it just doesn't, it's not an itchy skin condition, whereas fungal acne is. Roughly 15% of people who never have regular acne can still get fungal acne. It is most common between the ages of 12 and 62, and roughly around 90% of us have that yeast as a natural part of our microbiome. So again, just that head scratcher, so to speak, if everybody has, or most people have that C. acnes bacteria, how come not everybody breaks out in true acne? And same thing with this yeast. If the vast majority of humans have this on our skin, at least at some point, why don't we all have fungal acne? And we just don't know. We just know that some people are more predisposed to it than others. And if you have fungal acne on its own, in the absence of classic acne, you're going to find that your benzoyl peroxide doesn't work. Salicylic acid does little to nothing to help. It may help with some of the itching and the inflammation, but it's not going to get rid of the bumps themselves. It's not going to unclog that pore, because it really isn't about a clogged pore, so to speak. It's a bump that results from the inflammation that this yeast causes. Sweaty, if you sweat a lot or live in a humid climate, or you have oily skin, those are common triggers. Just like acne-causing bacteria loves feeding on the overproliferation of our skin's oil, so does this malassezia yeast. So the more oil you have, the more that yeast is likely to proliferate, because that's one of their food sources. That's their McDonald's hamburger. This particular type of yeast requires the C12 fatty acid, which is called lauric acid, and it's not as simple as just looking at your bottle of cleanser or moisturizer or other skincare products and saying, well, it doesn't have lauric acid or lauric acid derivatives in it, I'm good to go, this is a fungal acne safe product. Not so fast. Reason for that is not that you shouldn't check labels, but the C12 fatty acid, lauric acid, it's one of the chief fatty acids in our skin. It's always there to one degree or another. So That is why, even with careful label checking, you may find that even avoiding those certain fatty alcohols, the others are C13, which is tridecyllic. I don't see that in skincare too much. And then C14, which is myristic fatty acids and their derivatives. Those do show up every now and then. Myristyl alcohol, myristic acid, isopropyl myristate. Those can all contribute to fungal acne. They can serve as an additional food source for that yeast. But the frustrating part is that because the C12, the lauric acid fatty acid, I don't know why my under eye is just itching today so terribly. I apologize. Because that C12 fatty acid is what that yeast really depends on, and because that's a naturally occurring fatty acid in the skin, you may start feeling like you're running in circles because you can't totally eliminate what is a natural part of your skin. It's sort of like when you're dealing with sebaceous filaments, and you pull that filament out because that is actually a natural part of the pore structure. It's going to come back. You're going to be dealing with the same problem. The common recommendation for fungal acne is a course of oral antifungal medication. There are several. Ketoconazole is probably the one prescribed the most, but there are others in the azole family. You'd follow your doctor's instructions in terms of frequency of use of that oral medication. You may also be advised to wash your skin, to wash the affected areas with an antifungal shampoo, such as Nizoral. The typical advice, though, is to leave the active ingredient, the antifungal ingredient, on the area as long as you possibly can. The problem with doing that with a cleanser, a shampoo type product, is that those have surfactants in them, which left on the skin, remember surfactants are ideally, especially when they are a major part of the formula, they're designed to be rinsed off. The longer you leave them on the skin, the more you risk causing barrier disruption, which would irritate, inflame the skin, potentially result in dryness. So if you are trying the antifungal, which is really Nizoral, Head and Shoulders with zinc pyrithione, Selsun Blue with selenium sulfide as the active. Any of those are worth trying, and there are some doctors who would say that alternating between those antifungals can be the best way to go, so that the yeast doesn't get too used to one kind over the other. The other thing to consider, and this is kind of an inexpensive home remedy. Research has shown that pure aloe vera gel, most likely it's either going to be a very high purity grade form that you can get from some ingredient suppliers. I don't know if I'd run to Walgreens and grab, a bottle of heavily green tinted aloe gel for sunburn. You want a really high quality source of aloe, or you can just buy an aloe plant, and when it's grown enough, you can start taking the leaves off, breaking the leaves, and squeezing the gel, out of the leaves of the plant and applying that to the area. Research has shown that around a 30% concentration of aloe, so if you're getting it straight from the plant, that's considered 100%, which is why I think that's probably the best way to go, because it can be, you may be able to find some high purity 100% aloe products out there. Take a look, see what you can find. But that is an interesting potential leave-on treatment that would be gentle for fungal acne, because it seems that there are compounds, haven't identified which compounds those are, in pure aloe gel that break down the walls of the Malassezia yeast. So when those walls are broken down, that fungus is vulnerable and will not survive too much longer. It doesn't necessarily go. It's not the same effect that benzoyl peroxide would have in acne-causing bacteria, where it just releases that extra oxygen molecule, and it's kind of like shooting that bacteria dead right there on the spot. This is a bit more of a process, but it's worth a try. Aloe isn't that difficult to obtain, including just a big old aloe plant. So give it a go if you're dealing with fungal acne, and it's one of those what do you have to lose situations, because even if it doesn't work that well for those itchy bumps, it's still going to help your skin in terms of hydration. So what about hormonal acne? That's where we're headed next. All types of common acne have a hormonal trigger. typically and most commonly androgens, which are the male hormones, so your testosterone. This is true, the hormonal trigger is true across age ranges, which is why we typically, like Paula's choice, we don't typically distinguish between teen acne and adult acne, and we rarely use the term hormonal acne because if it's true acne, there's a hormonal underpinning to it. That's just true across the board. It may ebb and flow in terms of its severity, but in almost any case of classic acne, no matter your age, something's going on with hormones. Something is happening with the balance of hormones in the body that is contributing either strongly or weakly or moderately to that acne that you're seeing. That being said, research has shown that adults with acne do have a different presentation, a different set of things to be concerned about when it comes to taking care of the problem. And this is separate from the concurrent concerns that many adults with acne have is, man, I'm breaking out and I'm also seeing wrinkles. I'm also seeing dark spots. I'm also seeing my pores change size and they're not clogged, they're just getting bigger. What do I do? Adult acne does tend to be more stubborn. Not necessarily clear why. I have some stats to share with you. Extra care needs to be taken when considering topical products, skincare products, to address adult acne. That does not mean that you need special ingredients that wouldn't work for a teenager and vice versa. What it does mean is that you need to be even more cautious than a teen about making sure that any anti-acne product that you use, whether it's rinse off or leave on, is as gentle as possible. It's been shown that adults with acne tend to also self-identify as having sensitive skin, whereas teens with acne tend to self-identify as having oily skin. Here's some stats for adult acne. 76% roughly are people who deal with adult acne are women. It doesn't tend to affect men as badly. However, when men do get acne into adulthood, it tends to be more severe, more cystic in nature, nodular. The reason for this is because after puberty, biological males' hormones tend to level off, and they stay that way for quite some time. Biological women's hormones, they do this throughout the 20s, the 30s, due to the menstrual cycle. There can be other health issues unique to women that could also be contributing to the hormonal ebb and flow. But that is what the research has shown, is that the guys just tend to level off after they get out of the puberty years, and then they'll see that dip maybe in their 40s, but more often like 50s, 60s, where the testosterone starts to dip down. That, interestingly, older men, as their testosterone dips, they don't tend to break out. They'll have a different set of issues that we don't need to get into during this show. But women, as they go through menopause, will often find that their acne it gets worse, even if they haven't had it for years, or they may be experiencing acne for the first time in their lives as they go through menopause, because the loss of estrogen causes testosterone, kind of the opportunist over here, to become a bit more dominant, and it's the testosterone, being an androgen hormone, that can stimulate the acne. So it is absolutely not true that in the menopausal years your skin is going to become desert dry and you will not break out. Some people will experience that. Some people will experience excess oil and more breakouts, or you may experience your skin becoming drier and more sensitive and breakouts. Now that is a frustrating combination. The median age for adult acne is 35. Most adults with acne also had it as a teen, to one degree or another, and there's a school of thought that there is a subset of people, it's true around the world, that have what researchers refer to as recurring acne. You literally will have clusters of years where you will break out, no matter what you do. It's just going to happen for you. And then you'll have periods of remission where your skin is just, wow, no pimples, no breakouts. You're not walking into the bathroom in the morning being like, oh, what am I going to see today? It's just, you just enjoy this like honeymoon period of clear skin. And then, maybe 3, 4, 5 years later, you're breaking out again. The other interesting thing about adult acne, it's actually been shown that females that deal with adult acne, particularly between their 20s and into their 40s, tend to have a higher circulating level of androgens in their bloodstream. So if you are an adult woman with acne, you may want to talk to your doctor about having a blood test done to check your hormonal levels. There are fairly easy solutions involving prescription, but you can talk with your healthcare provider about the options to bring those levels back into balance, and in all likelihood, you will see a pretty swift reduction in your adult acne, even in the absence of doing anything skincare-wise, because it's being triggered by those extra androgens in the blood, and once those are normalized, your skin's going to do what it should do. Post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation is more common in adults with acne than it is in teenagers. That is not to say that teens do not get PIH, as it's known, the acronym. What is thought to be happening here is that when we are younger, our skin is just better able to respond. Its healing response is just stronger. It's been around less years, has endured less inflammation, less environmental exposure. I look at how fast a wound on my 6-year-old skin heals compared to like what it takes my 47-year-old skin to heal after a minor cut. And it's rather remarkable. It's not that I don't heal well. Thankfully, I'm still healing well. I've got a wound right here on my middle finger that is still in the scab stage. And if this was my son, this would be completely gone in 2 weeks. This is about 3 weeks for me, and it's still not healed yet. It just takes longer to heal as we age. Treatment is the same for adult acne in terms of the OTC products to look for. Persistent or unresponsive adult acne likely is going to require prescription options that could include hormonal influencers, potentially androgen blockers. It's a class of drugs. And prescription azelaic acid, prescription retinoids, and potentially antibiotics. Due to the more stubborn nature of adult acne, researchers tend to be in agreement that multiple therapies are needed. So don't get hung up on looking for that best adult acne ingredient. Give your adult acne several different ingredients, and you can certainly experiment with over-the-counter strengths of those ingredients that I just mentioned, of which you can find those in the Paula's Choice line as well as from other brands. So if you're not quite ready to go the prescription route, and some of them, like of course retinol and azelaic acid, deliver nice anti-aging benefits too, and so if you're struggling with both, that's great. Post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. This is the last section I'm going to cover because I know I've been taking up a lot of time just going over this. What did I tell you at the beginning of the show? This is like so much to say. But PIH, post-inflammatory pigmentation, comes up a lot. You guys want to know what to do when you get it. To some extent, you can't necessarily avoid it if you're going to break out anyway. You can take steps via skincare and prescription options, as we've been discussing, to minimize and reduce the breakouts and the chances that your pores are going to clog. But even the best of care, you can still get some amount of breaking out, and that can leave post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. I have found these days, thankfully, I don't break out very much, but when I do, I'm always left with a pink to red mark. When your skin color is very fair, like mine, that pink to red mark, it may be a little tannish, depending, but that tends to be what post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation from acne looks like. The darker your skin, the more melanin, skin pigment, is involved. So I'm going to read this excerpt because I thought it was really, really good in terms of what post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation is. Post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation is a common concern occurring after skin inflammation or injury. It is more common and severe in darker-skinned individuals, which would be Fitzpatrick skin types 3 through 6. So I'm a Fitzpatrick type 2. The scale goes from 1 to 6. So a Fitzpatrick 1 would be lighter than me. Fitzpatrick type 3 would be darker than me. So it's from Fitzpatrick type 3 down to Fitzpatrick type 6, which is the darkest, most melanated skin that tend to struggle with PIH the most, and it tends to be the most stubborn. The condition typically improves spontaneously, but this process can take months to years, necessitating prolonged treatment. PIH is commonly associated with acne, but can also be triggered by skin infections like impetigo, skin allergies, which would also fall into the purview of, because a skin allergy can cause what's known as atopic dermatitis. People who experience or suffer from facial eczema can also deal with post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. Psoriasis, when that scaliness from a psoriasis lesion is gone, it can leave post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, and it can also be triggered by certain medications. Post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation is also known for those who have darker skin tones as hypermelanosis, and it results from the overproduction of melanin or abnormal melanin deposition in the epidermis or the dermis following that round of inflammation. So what happens underneath the surface is that inflammatory mediators trigger melanocyte, which are the cells that produce melanin, hypertrophy, so that the melanocytes are damaged, which causes an increased activity, increased melanin production to make up for what is perceived as being lost, and that happens in the epidermis. In the deeper process extending to the dermis, the basal keratinocytes, which is our skin cells, are damaged, and that causes them to release large amounts of melanin. The melanin is broken down and deposited deeper in the skin. Hyperpigmentation limited to the epidermis, the uppermost layers of skin, has a higher likelihood of resolving itself, as in just going away, than dermal hyperpigmentation. That tends to be much more stubborn. The epidermal type of post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation tends to resolve or at least significantly improve within 6 to 12 months, even if you don't do anything. Whereas dermal hyperpigmentation in that lower layers of skin improves much more slowly, and for some people may be permanent. That is kind of somber, but it is also a very powerful message or reminder that if you know you're prone to hyperpigmentation, and particularly if you have darker skin, more melanated skin, do whatever you can to reduce inflaming or injuring your skin. And that includes being very, very careful about the products you use. Avoid products with fragrance, including essential oils. Avoid products with a high amount of denatured alcohol. Avoid products with ingredients known to irritate and inflame the skin. And start using products that contain as many anti-inflammatory ingredients as possible. A major source of inflammation for the skin is unprotected exposure to UV light. What a shock. So please, I beg you, I know when you have darker skin, a lot of you don't think that the sun is much of a threat. You've got your built-in protection. That is absolutely true. The more melanin you have in your skin, the more protected you are when exposed to UV light without any type of sunscreen. But that doesn't mean that the inflammation the UV light can cause isn't happening for you. So one of the best things you can do to help prevent not only just signs of aging, because you will see that eventually, just not as soon as people with light skin like me. The best thing you can do to help with your post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation is to put that sunscreen on every morning, even if you don't think you need it, even if it's cloudy, even if you're only going outside for a few minutes. Please just get into the habit of that. I promise your skin will thank you for it. Okay, let's take some questions here. I'm gonna kind of see like who's asking about acne. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Katie commented the before and after photos posted on PC Instagram are amazing when it comes to the effects of the Clear system on acne. Clear is the Paula's Choice anti-acne routine. There's a regular strength routine and an extra strength routine. We have really gotten some formidable pictures from our customers who use those products. And as someone who suffered with acne when I was younger, I mean, like a lot of acne, that really just I have so much pride when I see those photos because I know how good getting to that point can feel, and it just blows me away when I see how well those products work. I wish the Clear products worked that brilliantly for everybody, but I can tell you that they work really well for the majority of people who use them based on the feedback we've gotten and how well they sell. I can also tell you, in all honesty, that whenever you see before and after photos on our various social platforms, they're not doctored, they're not fake, they are real. There may be a little color correcting done behind the scenes to make the before and after pictures look more uniform in terms of their background and stuff, but we're not doing any sort of digital directing as far as removing pimples, adding more, making it look even worse. Whenever possible, we try to use the original photos sent to us by our customers. Gabby says, can you recommend a routine for combination skin with dehydration? Yes, one of the things, I'll of course talk about Paula's Choice products. One of the things that I love doing as someone, I also have combination skin, is I layer thinner products rather than worry about using one thicker textured cream for my drier areas or my normal areas. I'll layer several different hydrating products and I get great results from that. So I would encourage you to try the Skin Balancing Oil Reducing Cleanser along with the corresponding Skin Balancing Pore Reducing Toner. Try layering the Earth Sourced Power Berry Serum with one of our boosters. I think combination skin, especially dehydrated skin, responds very well to our 10% niacinamide booster. Niacinamide can have a somewhat of a normalizing effect on skin's oil, and niacinamide is also known to increase ceramide synthesis in the skin, which can be a key factor in helping to turn that dehydration around. So you can layer the Power Berry Serum, brilliant source of antioxidant, super great texture, nice natural glow finish without adding shine. For your sunscreen, a lot of our customers with combination skin love the Defense Super Light Daily Wrinkle Defense SPF 30. It has a slight tint to it to offset the white cast from the zinc oxide, which is its sole active ingredient. But if you don't like the idea of a mineral sunscreen or you don't want the tint, the SPF 30 formula in our skin balancing line is wonderfully light, as is the sunscreen and the SPF 30 option in our clear line. So you may need to, when you're shopping our site, I'll often tell people, buy the travel size or sample sizes of a few of our sunscreens that are formulated for your skin type. Because I really think in order to find that sunscreen that you love, and the more you love it, the more you're going to look forward to using it, and you actually will use it every day, you need to find which texture, which formula just feels the best to you. We do have more than one option, and there isn't necessarily like, oh, this is better than the other. Because in terms of the broad spectrum, it's there. In terms of the antioxidant protection, it's there. What it's going to come down to is your personal preference. And then for nighttime, the Clear Oil-Free Moisturizer is great for combination skin. If you want something really, really light, the Defense Nightly Reconditioning Moisturizer is a very light gel cream. And then if you want something that is in the gel texture, but a bit thicker and silkier, not heavy or oily, but thicker and silkier, the Skin Balancing Invisible Finish Moisture Gel is fantastic. That was a long-time favorite of mine. I have graduated to products that provide a bit more hydration now, as my skin's needs have changed with time, but I think that's a great place to start. Okay, Rafaela says, hi Bryan, does the area of the face where acne shows up indicate the reason behind them, like acne on chin is hormonal acne, for example, or is it a myth? It's mostly a myth. I did discover that adult acne, which a lot of people refer to as hormonal acne, does tend to have a U-shaped pattern around the face. So the chin, the jawline, the sides of the face, all the way up to the forehead, and the central part of the face tends to be acne-free, or maybe the blemishes in that area are very, very mild. Having said that, even though we can look at the research and see that there is a consistency with that pattern, that face pattern of adult acne, it doesn't mean that a teenager or a preteen who happens to be breaking out at the very early stages of puberty won't get acne in those areas as well. The other thing that tends to come up that it's definitely, it's not that it isn't true, but it isn't exclusive to adult acne, is that, I've heard even dermatologists say this, they'll say, well, adult acne is different from teen acne because adult acne is caused by stress. I don't know about you, but I don't know too many teens that aren't stressed these days, especially given what the world is going through, the fact that many teenagers have been literally out of school and away from their friends, away from their normal routine, away from that social interaction for an extended period of time. That's stressful, not to mention everything else that goes on during the normal time that impacts a teen's life. You know, the romances, the crushes, the stress of school, the applying for colleges, the maintaining a job. How do I buy a car? You know, how do I deal with my parents who are driving me crazy? The point is, teens experience stress, and so do adults. If anything, adults who experience stress tend to, because of experience and maturity, tend to have better coping mechanisms. You know, they know when they're dealing in they're in those higher stress situations, they have a better sense of how to manage it. You know, manage the stress you can, get rid of the stress that you don't need to have. You understand what I mean by that. So it is, stress absolutely plays a factor in acne because it stimulates a hormone in the body known as cortisol, which can cause chronic skin inflammation that can trigger acne for a great many people, but it really has nothing to do with whether you're an official adult or you're still in your teen years. Stress can be an underlying factor no matter your age if you break out. Did I answer your question? So I think I did. I will say some women, Rafaela, will experience what's called perioral dermatitis. That is a condition, perioral meaning around the mouth, and that dermatitis can resemble acne, but technically it is not, and it requires a different type of treatment. It also requires a medical diagnosis. You don't necessarily need to go see your dermatologist if you suspect you have perioral dermatitis. I have a feeling that most general practitioners, DOs, MDs, who have a good roster of female patients will recognize this condition, or you can bring it to their attention and say, look, I think this is what I have, and there are topical prescription options that can get it under control. If you have acne around the mouth that's not what you think is acne and it isn't responding at all, or maybe getting worse from over-the-counter acne products, it could be that you're not dealing with acne, even though that's what it looks like. I know it's confusing, but you're dealing with perioral dermatitis and you need to go see your doctor and get that diagnosis. Okay, let's get a couple more acne questions in here. MB239812 says, hope you are doing well. Does the 10% azelaic booster help acne, or is it strictly for improving skin tone and acne scars? Thank you. We do not position it as being an acne treatment because over-the-counter azelaic acid is not part of the acne monograph. So those would be your salicylic acid, your benzoyl peroxide ingredients. Having said that, there is absolutely research showing that the antibacterial effect that azelaic acid can have on skin can help to keep acne under control. Speaking personally, I have found that when I do get those occasional acne breakouts, if I start spot treating the area with azelaic acid, the blemish often never even comes to a head. And I don't get the dryness that I sometimes experience when I use benzoyl peroxide. I think benzoyl peroxide is highly effective, but for some people, myself included, it tends to work too well. It's like it gets rid of that acne lesion, but it also causes a little bit too much irritation and dryness. Even our gentle formula, without the fragrance, without the alcohol, where the benzoyl peroxide's in a special suspension, so it's nice and slow release. But that could also be that I happen to have our extra strength 5% benzoyl peroxide on hand. For all I know, my skin would respond beautifully to the 2.5% benzoyl peroxide, which is our regular strength formula. So I don't want to scare you away from benzoyl peroxide out of my personal story, because I firmly believe it remains one of the gold standard over-the-counter ingredients particularly for mild to moderate acne. But azelaic acid really seems to play a role in helping to alleviate breakouts as well. If nothing else, because it is so soothing, it can help further minimize, excuse me, the surface redness that acne almost always, has. And I use the azelaic acid booster in my routine for skin tone unification. So something I always have it around anyway. So when that little pimple starts showing up, I'm like, kill it. Mahadish, I'm not going to say this name correctly. I'm so sorry. Medaya? Maybe that's it. My apologies if that's not correct. What is the best way for sun protection right after Botox injection? I'm afraid of wearing that because of Botox migration and reapplying sunscreen on the injected parts due to infection. That is an interesting question. So what I would do in that situation is wear sunglasses or bring sunglasses and a broad-brimmed hat. I hear what you're saying about the issue. You don't want to get sunscreen into the areas where the needle was. You want to give that hole, so to speak, time to close up. By leaving the doctor's office with larger sunglasses, don't get the little teeny pair that just covers the eyes themselves. And if they're wraparound style, meaning they have wide temples that kind of hug the face as opposed to like a skinny wire temple, if you're getting light coming in from the side, you're not doing as much as you could to protect your eye area from UV light. Although I know a lot of those sunglasses look really sexy. Wear them later in the day, perhaps. And then the hat will help protect your skin in the absence of putting sunscreen on. My other suggestion would be to ask the doctor to apply a antibiotic ointment to your face, or you could bring your own. It could be something over the counter like a Polysporin or Neosporin. Put a thin layer of that over your face and then put a mineral sunscreen on top of that. It may feel a little greasy, but it should be sufficient to protect you and get you back home where you can then carefully, wash all of that off. But if it were me, I would do the hat and sunglasses thing. It's like sometimes we have to make those adjustments. Would sunscreen be ideal? Yes, but there are those times where it just isn't practical to put it back on. Very few and far between, let me emphasize. This is a good example. Daniel says, does benzoyl peroxide, I almost said does Denzel Washington, does benzoyl peroxide cause any free radical damage? Yes, it does. Can it accumulate over time into visible damage? Unlikely. And the reason is twofold. First of all, anything that has that oxidizing effect on skin is going to trigger free radicals. However, benzoyl peroxide it works very quickly, within minutes. And after that, because it's unstable, once it goes to work, once it kind of delivers that payload, it starts breaking down. Our skin's antioxidant defense system is in all likelihood, unless the antioxidants in your skin are just like totally shot, which is really, I don't know if that ever 100% happens, but it's much more likely to happen in somebody who is of advancing years and has had a lot of sun damage, a lot of other skin issues, and never really done anything to protect or help their skin. I wouldn't worry about it. I think that the free radical damage it causes is brief, and I think that the skin can handle it. I think you can further help your skin handle it by following with topical products that contain antioxidants. I also think, what was I going to say on that note with the benzoyl peroxide? Oh, I lost my train of thought, and I thought, oh, that's going to be an interesting tip to mention. Oh, where did it go? Nope, it's gone. If it comes back, I'll shout it out like a quiz show contestant. Let's do a couple more questions here before we wrap up. Guys, we need to do an acne topic again. Or at the very least, I need to just come and answer all of your questions about acne and not tell you what I'm so excited about in the world of acne that's new. Got to find a way to balance both, because I'm sorry I'm not getting to so many questions. Another question, Firo8813. I had the same question as above regarding benzoyl peroxide. I noticed that when I use it, my acne clears, but the red marks last longer than if I didn't use BP. If that's what you're experiencing, try azelaic acid. Try it instead and see if you don't notice the difference. You can also apply benzoyl peroxide to the breakout affected areas and then apply azelaic acid over it. That may be a nice 1-2 punch for you to try. Somebody says, oh my God, I want to be Bryan in my next life. Bowie, thank you. That was sweet. Kristen, how do I treat a burn from hydroquinone? My skin is red and super itchy. Oh, I'm so sorry. My go-to, use any soothing, gentle products that you have, and then start with a thin layer of 1% hydrocortisone, which is a topical anti-inflammatory that also has a nice anti-itch effect. Cortisone 10 is a good brand. Aveeno makes a nice one. It's got the colloidal oat in there as well, which is also very soothing. And then avoid the use of AHA, BHA exfoliants until that your skin is feeling better. Avoid retinol. Avoid anything that you would normally use in your routine that's too active. When your skin is in this state, or if it's a smaller area, just don't apply those more bioactive products to that area. Guys, it's the end of the hour. I gotta go. Wow, this went by fast. So yeah, I'll talk to our social team about doing another, your most burning acne questions answered type topic, and I promise I will do a brief intro, and then as long as you guys are asking me this many questions, I'll just start there and see where the hour takes us. Always interesting to see your questions. I love that you guys tuned in. I will check the comments section in a few days, so if you want to relay your questions there, I will be back to answer as many of them as I can. And, until then, another live chat coming up in 2 weeks. Guys, be good to each other. Stay safe.